Hello everyone, I'm Prasadita and I'm a trainer at Medcity International Academy. So today I'm going to talk to you about the role of pronunciation in IELTS. The speaking test in IELTS is assessed on the basis of 4 criteria. The first one is fluency and coherence. The second one, lexical resource. The third criteria is the grammatical range and accuracy of the speaker. And the final criteria is pronunciation. Since pronunciation is deemed as one of the 4 standards of evaluation, 25% of your final score amounts to that. So adequate attention must be given to pronunciation, particularly when you are pronouncing the words and sentences. First of all, let me make it quite clear that accent and pronunciation are 2 different things. Most often people have a misconception that a person with a really good accent will have high proficiency in English, but that is just a misconception. Accent is nothing but a manner of speaking a language. It is uniquely regionalistic, uniquely individualistic. For example, it varies from place to place. Let's consider the way in which Americans speak English. From that, we have an American accent. The way in which a British speaks English is also different. From there, we have the British accent of English. Similarly, in India, we have the Indian variant of English, and every Indian speaks English with their own accent. On the other hand, pronunciation is a universal phenomenon. It is very specific, and that is exactly the reason why pronunciation plays such a huge role in IELTS. When raters evaluate the speech, priority is given to how intelligible the speaker is to the listener. So to make it simple, you're judged on the basis of how well you're understood by the listener. Therefore, the way in which we stress a particular word is of great significance when in pronunciation. Let's take a very common word, economy. The word that I've just spelled should be pronounced as economy, but most often people mispronounce the word as economy or economy, which is in fact wrong. The right way of pronunciation is economy, and if you mispronounce the word, the meaning of that word is lost on the speaker, and therefore a miscommunication happens between the speaker and the listener. In order to avoid that, we need to adopt the right standard of pronunciation. We need not adopt the right or native accent, but we have to adopt the right method of pronunciation so that it is universal. Let's consider another word, photograph. The word photograph is quite common, and it is a word that people often mispronounce. When I say the word photograph, the stress is given on the initial syllable photograph. But if I take another word from the same word family, as in photography, the stress is not given on the initial syllable pho. Instead, it is given on the second syllable photography. Similarly, if we consider the word photographic, the stress is not given on the initial syllable, neither is it given on the second syllable. Instead, it is given on the third syllable, photographic. So, the best way to actually follow the right method of pronunciation is to follow the phonemic symbols. Now that we've spoken of the significance of stress on a particular word, we should also take into consideration of the significance of stress in a given sentence. The way we emphasize a particular word or particular words in a given sentence gives a lot of meaning to the listener. Now that we've spoken about the significance of applying stress on individual words, we also need to take into consideration the significance of stress in a particular sentence. The way we emphasize certain words, or maybe even a particular word in a sentence, gives a lot of meaning to the listeners. Now that we've spoken about the significance of giving stress to a particular word, we also need to take into consideration how stress should be given to a particular sentence. The way we emphasize certain words or even a particular word in a sentence gives a lot of meaning to the listener. While doing your IELTS speaking test, it is always advisable not to by heart things, because the moment you by heart things, you tend to give a monotonous tone to your entire speech, which would greatly impact your score in a negative manner, not in a positive manner. Also, try not to imitate, because the moment you try to imitate, the naturalness that you already have in you tends to just vanish. Moreover, when you do tend to imitate, you become nervous and it seems as if you're monotonously speaking the same thing over and over and over. So try to avoid that. Intonation also plays a huge role in pronunciation. The way you modulate your voice, be it the rising pitch or the lowering of the pitch, gives your emotion to the listener. So it's always advisable to speak with your emotion. It shouldn't be monotonous. Finally, the pace of your speech also factors into pronunciation. If you happen to be too quick for the listener to understand what you're trying to convey, your entire conversation is lost on the listener. Again, if you are too slow for the listener to understand what you're trying to say with unnecessary pauses here and there, the meaning is again lost on the listener. So pronunciation is indeed a huge factor in IELTS exam. So before going for your IELTS exam, reflect on all these points and then be natural, do not be nervous, and do well. All the best.